What's going on, good people? Welcome back to another episode of Trading My Funded Account. Today is day number 8. It's October the 20th, 2023. We made some trades today, so let's get into it. So before we get into the trades that we want to talk about for today on the 20th, I missed these past 2 trading days, but I still did trade, and I wanted to just come back and talk about those trades that I made because, you know, sometimes when it comes to this trading game, you get a little bit too overconfident and you make some bad decisions. And just for full transparency, I want to come over here and just talk about it so I can hopefully learn something from it, and maybe you guys can too. So the biggest thing that went wrong with the 25K account, now before I even get into it, it's not blown. It's at 24,200. So I'm not that far away from the $1,500 trailing drawdown. I think I have about maybe $60 left, so it's not blown, but it's very close, but I'm still surviving. Now with this account, what I did wrong was I switched up the things that I was doing that were successful that got me to this point. So for me to get here, what I did was I used my higher low strategy. I traded on the Dow Jones and I looked for 20 to 25 points on every trade. But what I did this week, and I don't want to make any excuses, but I started trading the S&P because for whatever reason, the Dow wasn't accepting orders that I placed on Monday, Tuesday, and halfway through Wednesday. So that was the 18th. So I was like, man, I still need to trade. So I'm just going to trade the S&P because I know that that's very similar. So those are the videos that I made on Monday and Tuesday where I was doing fairly well because I was sticking to the things that I knew. I was scalping because I wasn't quite comfortable with the S&P. So I was like, look, let me take my best setups, but just get in and out with some big size behind it for quick trades. And that was working for me, but then I went and I switched it up. So I started thinking about the money and the profits that I could make too much. And I think when you want to scalp any type of instrument, financial instrument, you got to remember that you cannot focus on the profit potential that could be gotten by getting a little small trade. Like maybe you on the S&P and you say, oh, I just need 1 point. But for me, having the mentality of saying I just need 1 point made me think that it was going to be easier than what it actually is, because I'm like, oh, it's just 1 point. Well, even if you want 1 point or if you want 100, you still got to come into the market and get your trades in from a good entry price and a good entry point on the chart. You got to pick the right levels, because if you don't, having such a tight profit target means you got to have a tight stop, which means that you really have no room for error. So you got to get in at the best possible levels, and if you don't, you could take a lot of losses. And that's pretty much what I went through on October 18th. And if we read the first note at the top, it says I traded with way too much size and not enough discipline. So too much size, I was trading $5 contracts, 5 contracts. So on the S&P, that's $250 a point. So every time I took a loss, it was a $250 loss. And for me, I just felt like that was a little bit too much for me at the time. I wasn't in a position where I had grown the account high enough to be taking that type of risk. So that was a mistake right there. And then the part where I say it's not enough discipline is me just not taking the right setup. So on October 18th, if we look at 1 and 2, I went long here, but I went against the trend. That's something I know I shouldn't do. Trade 3, that worked out. Why did trade 3 work? Because I followed my strategy the way that I should. I waited for a higher low to form, and then I waited for prices to come back, retest support, and I went long as prices came back to retest support, and I got my trade and got my profit. That's what I should be doing all day long. But I just got a little bit greedy because I just start thinking about all the potential profits that could be made. So I'm like, man, I'm going to take every possible entry that I can. And that's just not the way to do it, because that's not what I did to get me here. And I need to stick to the things that I know. If we look at trade number 4, I bought towards the high of this entire move. I never do that. So I don't know why I came in on this day and decided to. It's just the greed. The greed took over me and I made some bad decisions. And we come back down here to trades 5 and 6. I shorted right here, but shorted against the long tail wick. I learned that lesson just the other day on October the 16th. When we were talking about some trades that I was talking about. And also I think on October the 12th from last week. So for me to come in on the 18th and still make those same mistakes, that's a problem. You know, that's not in my trading strategy. This is not a move that I usually go for. So I really shouldn't even be taking that trade. Now I came back on trade 6 and made it back, but that doesn't matter because I should have never traded within this entire junction as it is. Now on trade 7, what did I do right here? I shorted against the lows. we can go back through almost all of my videos, and almost all of them always say, don't short the low, don't buy the high. Whatever you do, you got to be disciplined. If you're going to short from higher prices. If you're going to go long from lower prices. Buy low, sell high, short high, cover low. So on trade 7, just another mistake. And then on 8 and 9, I would say this was a reasonable short trade, but I just chose the wrong level. I shorted from right here, but I should have shorted from these bodies up here. So I shorted from the wick instead of the bodies, and that cost me. Now, if I would have had my normal stop loss that I usually use for my swing trades for 20 to 25 points, I would have been able to actually withstand that drawdown for a second as prices went against me, and I would have saw that trade work out. So me changing up my strategy and using a tighter stop, it cost me right there. And that's why I say it's so important to stick to what you know and do the things that got you to where you were. So that was the 18th on the S&P. But like I said earlier, the Dow actually started working again for me. Whatever was wrong with my computer, I don't know. But it started working again on the 18th. So I came in and I traded the 75K account. That's another thing I talked about earlier, but I don't think I talked about it enough. I have a 25K account, but I also have a 75K account, both of them funded. So I was like, okay, I didn't want to lose the 25K account, and I haven't lost it yet, but I'm close to. But I was like, if I ever do and something goes wrong, I know I always have a backup. So maybe in my mind, that kind of led me to going down that path and being more aggressive, because I was just like, well, I got another one, so might as well. But I don't think that's the right mindset either. But just to say that, yes, I do have a second one. So for this account, I came back to the Dow Jones and I traded the way that I knew I was supposed to. Kind of, but halfway. Because yes, I took all of the right setups, but I still had a scalping mentality. So I came into the Dow Jones and I was just looking for 10 points on every trade, as opposed to me looking for my usual 20 to 25 points on every trade. I was just looking for 10. And I think that mindset, like I was talking about earlier, it just led me to taking some trades that I usually wouldn't take, because I'm saying, well, I feel like I could get 10 off of this one. But here's the thing. If I don't feel like I can get 20, I shouldn't try and go for 10. Because in order to get 10, you still have to do the same things that you would do in order to get 20, which is you get into the market from the best possible prices, from the best possible levels based on your best trade setups. So if you're going to get in from the best possible prices at the best levels, you might as well hold that trade for a 20 to 25 point profit target. Because if you can get 10 and you got in from the best entry, more than likely you can get 20 also. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I just stopped believing in my strategy for the past couple of days. It was nothing that really happened to make that actually legitimize, but I did it anyway. But I snapped back into it today, and I came back and I looked at my notes last night, and I was like, look, Ty, the things that work for you are the higher low strategy. Whenever you make your trades around the higher low and you participate the right way, you have a very high chance of making money and running up the numbers on your account. So just stick to that and only do that. And I think when I first got funded in 2019 and lost the account, the biggest thing that went wrong for me was that I tried to do things that I usually wouldn't do, and that I usually didn't do when I was on the road to getting funded. So I was almost going down that wrong path this time, but I was able to turn everything around and kind of just get my mind back right and say, look, Ty, yeah, you've been through some tough times. You almost blew the account, but you still have 2 accounts funded and you still have an opportunity to make money. So go out here and make the right decisions. So this was October 18th. I ran this account up to a high of 75,823. But then I came back on the 19th and I was in profit at first. I was up by a good little amount. I was still coming in with my scalping mentality and my scalping strategy, just a little bit too tight on the stop losses and the profit targets, because I'm not maximizing what I could get on my profits, and I'm also kind of locking in some of my some of my losses that I shouldn't be taking if I had my normal stop, because my stop was just too tight. But needless to say, I was up at first, but then came back and decided to still keep trading and took bad trade after bad trade after bad trade after bad trade. And if you look at what happened over here, when I started making profit, when I started following my strategy. Because what's this right here? This is the higher low strategy. Prices came back, retested the support level for the higher low. I went long, I made profit. I only took 10 off of this one, but I could have took 20 if I had the right mindset. Same thing right here, you know, higher low, prices come back, retest support. What do? I go long, I make profit. I took 10 on that one, but I could have took 20. Same thing right here. What is this? A higher low. I went long as prices came back to retest support and took it back up to yesterday's closing price, caught 20 on that one, right? That was the beginning of the session. So I worked my way back into profit after being down by a lot, but then I still kept going. I traded the higher low setup right here again. Good decision. But as soon as I started taking losses, notice what happened. I went long right here at a mature higher low. That's something that I shouldn't do. We'll talk about that for the trades that we took today on October 20th also. But went long too high right here, took a loss. What's this right here? Not really a higher low. It was a higher low before, but after prices have ran so far up, you don't want to take that long trade as prices are showing momentum coming back down into that level. Momentum on the selling side. You don't want to get in front of that, which is one of my biggest rules. Don't trade against momentum. There I go again, breaking my rules. And of course, the results were negative. No surprise right there. Same thing right here. I looked to go short as prices came back to retest this level of support that was broken through, which then became resistance, which was a great idea. But, which was a great idea, but my stop was too tight because I was using my lower, smaller 10 to 10 point take profit and 10 point stop loss. And it literally came back and stopped me out at the highest price, and then the move happened. So that means that my entry point was correct, but my stop was either too tight or I shorted too low. And in this situation, I feel like it was both of those. And I think that's the most important thing, just not going against the things that are working for you, you know. And then I came back right here. I just got super emotional. I saw that prices were coming back to yesterday's closing price. So I just started shorting with no regard, expecting for prices to come back down to that level. And that's not what you want to do whenever you see an important level starting to pop up. What you want to do is, yeah, you see that area that you're aiming for, but you still want to wait for your setup to occur. So what I should have done in this spot was wait for prices to come back, retest these lows for this wick over here from this area that used to be support, and then go short. But I didn't do that. I just shorted as prices were on the way down, and I hope for the best. That's not what you want to do. And then we come back over here. I finally start making profitable trades, and look at what happened and why that occurred. It happened because I traded that higher low strategy. You can use the higher low strategy as a way to look for short sales when you're in a downtrend and a higher low gets formed and then it gets broken back through. So the moral of the story for this entire day, I think this is the third part. Part 3, I want to say. Yeah, so basically the story was the same thing throughout the day. You know, every time I traded based on my higher low strategy, it wasn't successful every time, but it was successful like 80% of the time. Anytime I traded anything outside of my strategy, it didn't work. So it was a tough lesson to learn, but it was a lesson that I needed to learn nonetheless. And then I came back today and I was like, look, I'm only trading the higher low strategy. If I'm going long, I'm going long based on the higher low strategy. If I'm going short, I'm going short based on the higher low strategy. So that pretty much leads us into what we did today. All right, so let's talk about it. So for trade number 1, I went long here as prices came back to retest a prior swing high. Now, that was a great entry, a great trade. Prices came back, they retested yesterday's closing price, and then they pulled back during an uptrend to retest a previous swing high. That's a great entry, but I got to hold my best trades. Now, right here, I got a little bit nervous because I was like, we hit yesterday's closing price and we sold off, but we still closed the candle green, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to just go ahead and get out. I feel like in that situation, that's not a time where you want to be unsure. That's a time where you say, well, everything lines up. It's an uptrend. We hit a major level of resistance. Of course, we're going to bounce back off of it, but we should come back to retest the prior high. So those are the types of trades that I have to hold, but it came back out to break even, so I wasn't mad at it. So then we move on to trade number 2 after prices broke above yesterday's closing price. So I went long right here based on the higher low, which is my strategy. But one of the things I talk about all the time is that you don't want to buy a higher low that's too mature in the uptrend. And mature just simply means that the higher low came at more than likely the highest price level that entire upswing had reached. Now let's go back to the live chart for a second and let's just scroll back to the pre-market. So the uptrend that we're looking at, it started at around, 8:30 this morning at a price of 410, and then we moved all the way back up to yesterday's closing price at 536. So for me to go long right here, I'm going long towards the tops of the swing and the top of the entire up move that just occurred. And it doesn't mean that that trade can't be successful. It just lowers the probability because the move is already happening. You want to get in as the move is progressing, not necessarily at the top of it. So on trade 2, yes, I traded the higher low strategy, but you always got to remember that every higher low isn't one that you want to take. So then we move on to trade number 3, where I went long right here based on the higher low, which is my strategy, but you always got to respect those prior lower highs. So if you look at this area right here was the top of the swing that we just talked about. Now we pulled back down and came back up, never actually got past those highs that we created before. So this right here is a lower high. So anytime you see a higher low that comes immediately after a lower high, even though that higher low is something that's very appealing, you still gotta respect that lower high that's formed to say, okay, yeah, it's a higher low, but the most previous thing that got formed was a lower high. So I need to respect the fact that the lower highs are still in place. And I think that's what pretty much led to the loss at trade 3. The setup was there, but you still got to remember to take into account the overall market scenario before you just get into that specific trade. So then on trade number 4, I went long right here again, expecting for prices to actually have a false breakout past the higher low, break back above that level, and then continue higher, which is what I was able to do on trade 5. But on trade 4, I was a little bit too early, and the notes are very important because they say wait for momentum to roll in before buying a false downward breakout. Because I saw the false breakout to the downside. I saw us come back to retest a previous higher low. So I'm like, okay, we found support right there. We should be moving higher. Now, if that's the idea that I have, I always want to make sure that it's momentum coming in before I get in. Now, if you look at this candle that we were on, yes, it was green for a while, but it didn't close that way. So if it didn't close that way, then that means that the momentum that came in wasn't quite strong enough to actually constitute a false breakout. Now, if you look at trade number 5 and candle number 5 right here, notice how this candle had extreme momentum to the upside. It was a very large candle with little to no wicks on the bottom. So that's telling us that that's a very strong, powerful momentum candle, which means that if a momentum candle is coming in to push us back above a previous higher low that just got violated really quickly on a false breakout, that momentum should be substantial enough to push us up to at least an equal high or a new high at minimum. So that's pretty much the mentality I had on trades 4 and 5. So trade 4, I was a little bit too early, but on 5, once I saw the momentum coming in, I went long and took prices back up to slightly above yesterday's closing price, right back up to this previous lower high that got established. And once we hit that lower high, we sold back down, created another consecutive lower high, which pretty much led to the downtrend that lasted for the next hour or so. So we pushed back down, retested support one more time, came back up, and look at what we did right here. We created a higher low. So once I saw that higher low, I was like, okay, it's my time to shine right here. So I said, what are my options in this scenario? We have a higher low, but we do have lower highs that are coming up out of it. So I don't necessarily want to go long right here, expecting for that higher low to hold up. Instead, I want to see if prices can break back down below that higher low. And if they do, if they ever come back to retest that level that used to be support for that higher low, that's where I want to go short from. And that's exactly what I did right there on trade number 6. So if we read the notes, it says I shorted here as prices came back to retest a prior higher low that had been broken through. And now that they came back to retest that, it should act as resistance. And I was able to catch my 20-point scalp target. And that's also very important too on the things that I was doing today. On all of the positive trades that I had, all of them were the normal 20 to 25 points that I'm usually looking for. I got rid of the mentality about taking a 10-point scalp, because if 10 is available, more than likely, so is 20. So I took my 20 right here on trade 6, and I was happy about that. So I saw prices continue moving on. I really didn't participate. I just observed until I saw my setup start to come in, which was the higher low. And we got that right here. So we initially formed a bottom right here, pushed up, created a higher low. So I circled it up, drew my level of support across it. Now, I wasn't really quite sure about going long right here because I saw that the trend was really strong. So I pretty much used the same mentality I had up here from before when we saw this other higher low. And I was like, you know what? Let me see if prices can break back down below it and then push back up to retest that level. And if they do, I might go short. Now, the reason I didn't take the short trade right here was because one of the things that I've been learning over these past couple of months is that when you're looking for that short trade based on the higher low violation, even if you see the perfect setup start to form, you don't want to take that trade if it comes near the lows of the entire down move, that entire swing. So even though I saw my setup right here, I was like, we're at the lows of the move. I can't take that trade. If I did, it would have worked, but it doesn't matter if it would have worked or not. You always got to follow your rules. Sometimes it'll work, but most of the time it won't, and you'll protect yourself from a lot of losses by actually skipping those trades. So I did a good job right there of just being disciplined enough to say, is this the perfect setup that I want? No? Okay, well, I'll pass on it and look for the next best opportunity. So we initially created the low for the day right here at around 33,350. We pushed back up and created another higher low. Now, this is really significant because anytime you have a previous higher low that gets violated, but then prices come back immediately and get back above that level and then come back to establish another higher low on that same level of support that they did from earlier before the break happened, that tells you that, yeah, the sellers did come in for a short amount of time, but the buyers were strong enough to create another higher low. So if you're keeping score, that means that the sellers were successful once, but the buyers were successful twice, which means that in that moment, the buyers are in control for that quick little second. Now, on trade 7, we see the higher low, right? So that means that once this higher low got established, I should have went long right here on this red candle as prices came back to retest the support level, and then they moved up to the upside. I would have been able to get my 20-point target off of that trade right there based on that higher low setup. But if you look at trade 7, I did go long right here, but I ended up taking a loss. And if we read the notes, look at what it says. It says, I went long here as prices came back to retest the higher low. But remember, the first entry is the best entry. And that's a rule that I've learned a lot of different times and in a lot of different scenarios and a lot of different ways, but it always remains the same. Anytime you have a setup that you're looking for, you got to take that setup the first opportunity that you get, because that's the most lucrative push. Any other opportunity that you get after that, it doesn't mean that those opportunities won't make you profit, but the probabilities of those trades being successful are just lower because the people that wanted to get in that move, they took it on the first time that it came around. And I know me myself as a trader, if I take the move the first time and I get profit, I'm not really looking to get in a second time. So it's just less participation coming around that second time when you're looking for that entry, and that's why you want to get it the first time. And if it comes back and gives you a second opportunity, skip it. Don't have to take that. It's unnecessary. And that's the reason why I took that loss right there on trade 7. You know, you got to be disciplined, and when you see your opportunity, take it and don't chase the market. If you're looking for that second entry opportunity, that's chasing. You don't want to do that. So after we see prices get stopped out on trade number 7, they push back down to create a higher low in comparison to the lowest price that we touched today at 350. Now this higher low was a very minimal higher low in comparison to where we came from, but a higher low is a higher low nonetheless. So once I saw prices bounce from right here and then get back above the support level for the higher low that we originally established the first time, I was like, okay, this is very similar to what I saw on trade number 5, where we had a false breakout past the higher low level, but then we had momentum roll back in and push prices back up to the upside. So once I saw that momentum rolling back in, I went long right here as prices broke back above the support level for the higher low. at trade number 8. And then I was able to take that up about 20 to 22 points higher, back up to this wick right here, and then I got out. And if I would have held it, it would have still been successful, as prices came all the way back to retest a major level of resistance from a high volume candle that had been established a little bit earlier. So that right there is a textbook day when it comes to what I'm supposed to do. And this day taught me a lot, because I'm not gonna lie, yesterday I was kind of shaky and I wasn't quite sure about whether or not I knew what I was doing, because I'm like, dang, man, how could I come into the market and just lose so much money? But I realized I was losing money because I wasn't doing what my plan told me to do. But as soon as I came back in today and followed my strategy down to the T, I had success. So I can't even be mad. You know, I came in, I did my thing, and it worked out. So that right there just built my confidence, and it let me know that if I come into the market and follow my plan, I will be successful. The only time I don't have success is when I start straying away. So that's where the discipline is going to have to come in. It's going to have to be enough discipline for me to sit back and say, I'm only looking to either go long based on a higher low, or I'm only looking to go short based on a higher low failure. And those are the only two ways I'm really looking to get into the market. Anything other than that, I don't want it. So that's the mentality I need to have going forward. And I think if I have that mentality, I can definitely build up this account the way that I want to and the way that I plan on doing it. So overall, this account, I made 106 today. So we're up 314 on this account. If we go back to the 25K account, I'm down by 800 and my trailing max drawdown is at 36. So that means on this account, even though I didn't plan on it, it actually has become an account where I'm going to have to make this a small account challenge, where I start off with micros, just one micro contract, and look to make good trade after good trade, build that equity up until my trailing drawdown is back into the hundreds, maybe somewhere around 500. And once I get it to that level, then I'll be comfortable going back to the minis and trading my strategy the way that it should be. So that's a little side project that I'll be working on too. And my main project right now is a 75K account. I want to get this account up to 80,000 and then look to take a withdrawal once I get to that level. So in order to get there, I got to stay disciplined and I got to stay focused. So this right now has become priority number 1, 75K account. So priority number 2 would be the 25K evaluation account, because even though I do have the funded account, the personal account, I still wanted to do another evaluation, because this personal account, I'm not going to lie, it's going to take a minute for me to work my way back up into profitable territory and into an account balance where I can feel comfortable trading mini contracts again instead of micros. So I don't want to rush that process. I want that process to take however much time it needs to. Whenever the trades come, that's when I'll take them. I'm not putting a time limit on that. But in the meantime, in between time, I wanted to start another 25K account, because I feel like I can get this account up to the profit target. I'm not going to say easily. If I trade the maximum size, I'll need 75 points in order to make that happen. Today, I came away with 19 points. So that's not bad. So if I can come in day after day and just look for my best trades, I should be at that 75 point profit target in no time. So I feel pretty confident about being able to get another 25K funded account. And then I should have 3 if everything works itself out. I should still be building up this personal account for the 25K and still running up this personal account for the 75K. So that right there is my plan. And in order to make these things happen, I got to do one thing only: stick to my plan and do what's been working for me so far. And if I do those things, I have no doubt in my mind that I can reach all of the goals that I want to reach. Now, was it a tough week for me? Yeah, it was very tough. I went through a lot of things mentally. You know, I went through a lot of ups and downs. But at the end of it all, somehow I still came out at the end of the week with both of my funded accounts still intact. And I can go into the weekend, get the things right that I need to, work on being disciplined and work on trading only when I see the higher low strategy. And I should come back next week and really knock this thing out of the park. So I'm pretty excited. You know, I went through a lot, but I came out on the other side and I still made it through, even through all of the adversity. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in with me today. I know this has been a pretty long video, but I hope you guys were able to learn a lot from it, because I know I definitely did. I'll be back on Monday, ready to run it back again. But until then, you guys, have a good weekend, study hard, and take it easy.